All right. Welcome to another Tour Tuesday event. My name is Brianna Vincent, and I am a project coordinator with Connected Lane County. I am joined today for today's event by Andrew Martz from the Eugene Airport. Andrew, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So my name is Andrew Martz, and I am the acting assistant airport director here at the Eugene Airport.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
So I want to remind everyone that you should have watched the Eugene Airport tour video that Jenna sent out. And if you haven't watched it, please do so after this. It might make a little more sense to the questions that we're asking and answering here today. And as a reminder, again, we cannot see or hear you during this event, but you can ask any questions that you want into the chat feature, and we'll make sure to get those answered. So, Andrew, let's get started. Let's start with how'd you get here? How'd you get into this career path and into this position?
Gosh, that's a great question. I have kind of a winding path to get here. I started out, I grew up in Eugene, went to Oscar School here, went to the U of O here, and then ended up doing a whole different career doing advertising. So I was a movie trailer editor and TV commercial editor. So
Wow.
really got into marketing, ended up being like a supervisor, a post-production supervisor, and did that for quite a long time in Hollywood. And then moved away from that, went on, got my master's degree in public policy, and then really just loved travel. So I traveled for a while and then eventually ended up working for Alaska and Horizon Airlines. So worked for them for a few years. And then the opportunity here at the Eugene Airport came open for communications development manager, which is partly marketing and a lot of other hats that I've worn throughout different stages in my career. And it was just a perfect fit. And so it's just been great. So I've been here now about 3 years. I've now moved into the assistant airport director role, and it's been a fun ride, but not necessarily a straight one.
It seems to be a theme. I think Lizzie said this before in her question and answer, but it seems to be a theme that people we interview for these tours don't have a direct path to where they are. It kind of has twists and turns, and
Yeah,
you end up
I
where you
think
end up.
um, I think it's really important in life to be flexible and be open to making career decisions, what might not necessarily have been apparent when you took the job you're in or looking for a job. Especially because as people we grow as we get older, and we get a little bit more honed in on what we want. So I wasn't necessarily a person when I came out of high school that knew exactly what I wanted to do. In fact, I didn't. So I went and got my degree, but it wasn't like a clear cut path. And I think that it's okay to feel that way as long as you're open to exploring something.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I feel like it'll roll right in. What makes you happy about your role at the airport?
Oh, well, my personality, I love wearing lots of different hats. I love, doing lots of different things within each day. Airport is a vibrant place to be. There's a lot of people. I love, if you ever like people watching, airport's definitely a place for you because you get people from all crosses and all walks of life. And I just love that. I always have. Even before I worked at the airport, I'd like to go to the airport early just to people watch. I'm
Hmm.
just that kind of person, and I love travel. So, but yeah, I would say that the people are great. I work with a great team here at the Eugene Airport, and I find that people within this industry, and I'm sure it's like this with other industries, but for me personally, within the airport industry, it's just there's a camaraderie, and there's there you feel like you're part of a team, so the people are great. And then you never quite know what your day is going to be. When I get to work in the morning, I might have a set schedule and I've got my meetings, but you never know what's going to come out of left field. Something's going to happen, and you got to jump on it and figure out what to do. And I really enjoy that. So it's good.
Is your position specifically more of like a 9 to 5 position?
On paper, I'm an 8 to 5,
Okay.
but it very rarely works out that way.
Hmm.
It's one of those things that in my position, I'll have some weeks where I can do that kind of standard 40-hour week, but then there are others, like especially right now, we have two brand new airlines coming to our airport. We've got Avilo, which is a brand new airline. It's they're starting up in a couple weeks. And then we got Southwest Airline coming. So that's a lot of stuff and a lot of coordination and a lot of marketing and all kinds of things. So I tend to work longer hours during periods of like that. And then, we are a 24/7, 365-day a week operation. We don't close ever. And so if something has to be done, not just myself, but our entire management team and entire staff, we're committed to making sure that the airport is functional and stays open and stays safe for the people that need to use it.
Right. So can you talk a little bit about the different departments or jobs? I know we've said that there's a lot of them at the airport, but just can you go over maybe brief bullet points of what they are to just give everyone a sense of how many departments there are or how many different kind of pieces to the puzzle?
Sure. So every airport has, its different compartments, and we all try to work together. So we have a management team. The management team reports to me. So we've got our operations manager. So they would handle all our regulatory compliance as far as our safety and our airfield lighting and our runway. In airport terms, we're a Part 139 airport. So that means we're a commercial operations airport. So our operations manager really is our Part 139 specialist, making sure that we're adhering to all the FAA regulations around, it's everything from how bright a light is to what color blue it is to, it's really, really down to the nitty gritty. So that's our operations manager. They also oversee our staff that help secure the airport. The Eugene Airport is 2,600 acres. So we're quite a big, we're part of a big piece of land. And so they patrol the area, they do inspections and also help out in the terminal for our on-site Eugene Police Department. So if they need assistance, our operations staff would help there. We've also got our security manager. So that is really our interface with the TSA and making sure that the airport is complying with all the security regulations. Also, again, there's we really heavily mandated at the federal level. And so our security operations manager handles that and makes sure that we're doing right by TSA and all for the safety of our passengers and our aircraft. We've got our airfield manager. So our airfield manager takes care of everything out in the physical outside the terminal. So airfield side would take care of everything what we call inside the fence. So we've got our security fence. So everything inside the fence, your runways, your taxiways, your ramps, the grassy areas, all those kinds of things are airfield. Then we've got our land side. So that's everything on land outside the fence. So that's basically landscaping, irrigation, pest control. And then both of those also handle our wildlife mitigation. So we love animals, we love birds, but birds and planes don't mix. So we try and scare away birds as much as possible. And then we also have a capture and release program for raptors. So when we get raptors in the area, we actually have a wildlife biologist on site that then takes those and re-releases them elsewhere so that they can have a happy life away from the airport. Then we've got our terminal facilities manager. So that's basically everything inside the terminal. That person and their team take care of everything. So it's everything from maintenance and our HVAC system to make sure the air's clean to doing the cleaning. And we're really proud of our cleaning protocols. So our terminal manager, facilities manager, recently had us accredited as what's called a GBAC star facility. So we were one of the first 10 airports in the nation to get this. And it really shows a really super high level of cleaning and attention to biorisk hazards. And so we're really proud to have that. Then we've got our project manager. So we're constantly thinking about what we're going to build next. And we have a master plan that looks 5 to 20 years out. So we all kind of stay aligned in our vision. And so right now we're actually in the process of starting our design terminal for our Concourse C because we're running out of space. We're full, even at the reduced levels through COVID. We need more gates, and we could use them today, but we're hoping 3 to 5 years from now we'll have a brand new concourse that we can put more planes at and have more gates. So our project manager really works on that alongside our environmental project manager. So that's basically everything that has to do with the environmental concerns. Once again, we're federally regulated and we have to get FAA approvals and go through their environmental processes to make sure that that's handled. We also have our finance director. So if it's got a dollar sign attached to it, our finance director is involved. And so she's intricately tied in, and her team, into making sure all our finances are going the right place. We don't take any local tax money. So pretty much all of our money is either we make it ourselves or we get it through FAA grants, which are designed specifically to fund airports. So like say the new runway construction would typically be 90% federal money and we'd pay 10% of it generally. Let's see, and then we've got Catherine Stevens, our acting airport director. So she's in charge of the ship. So that's who I just lost the ability to speak English. That's who I report to. Sorry about that. Yep. And so we're really lucky to have her on board. And then we also have our attendant services manager. So oversees all our parking operations and interfaces between the airport and all our airline partners to make sure that our lines of communication are open and that we're making sure that we're serving their needs because they help serve our customers' needs. So.
And all of those that you just talked about are airport, or I learned in the video, City of Eugene employees, correct?
Correct. So okay. Each airport's a little different. The Eugene Airport is, we are City of Eugene is our sponsor, is the technical term. So we are all City of Eugene employees, at least the actual airport employees. All the people that work for the airlines, they work for their specific airline. The people that work for the restaurant actually work for the restaurant. People that work for the gift shop actually work for the gift shop, and so on. And so sometimes there's a misconception that if you see someone working in an airport, that they work for the airport, right. And that's not the case, where we've got a lot of different entities here. Yeah, right. But all the people that I just went through, all those managers, those would be people who work for the City of Eugene.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. I absolutely learned that today. So in thinking about the departments, and you had said earlier that you went to the university and got a degree. So from the video, there was a couple people who said that they just started with I'm going to say the airport to generalize, the airport or their airlines with a diploma. So is there kind of a general statement that you can make about what education is needed for different departments, or is it really dependent?
Every department is so specific. It's really hard. I mean, there are educational degrees in, airport management, mm-hmm. or obviously there's the pilot route where you actually can become a pilot. It really depends on what part you want to do. So I wouldn't say there's one track that gets you there. A good resource right on site here, we have the LCC Flight School. So that they have a lot of great information, and they're a great program. We're really glad to have them on site here. Other than that, like our environmental project manager has a history and degree in environmental science. Our project manager has, engineering experience and experience in project management. So it really depends on what you want to do. And sometimes that can be hard because they're all interesting in their own way. But I would say, find the one that interests you, and then there's a track for each.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it sounds like the individual department or kind of route would have their own education requirements, training updates. I assume with certain positions, you would have to have, ongoing training for,
Oh, yeah, we all go through training all year. We have different trainings. There's specific trainings for each department, but as a whole, at every level, we're going through some kind of training. Not just annually, throughout the year. There's recurrent training that happens monthly at a minimum. So yeah, and then it is also one of those things. You don't be afraid to start out at a lower level. A lot of times people who are in management positions, and this isn't just true for Eugene Airport. This is true across the industry, and probably just as a generalization of work life, is that Don't expect to come in at the top. Don't expect to just instantly be in a management position. In fact, those who have worked their way up from the bottom and know all the details of what happens in those specific roles are the ones who I think make the best managers, make the best people who to work at a higher level.
Mm-hmm. So, in thinking about getting prepared for a job in your industry, what do you think high school students can do right now to prepare to come in? And are there any specific like CTE classes that you would recommend, or clubs or
Gosh,
organizations?
I think it's the most important thing to do is do some research and then, call people, and not just at Eugene. There most airport management or airport people in general that I know are happy to have a conversation with someone. And I think if you're interested in something, what it seems like from the outside might not necessarily be what it's like from the inside. So it's good to research and look into it and talk to people. And, when I was, looking for jobs, and it's still something I do, is like ask people, what is it, just like you asked me, what do you like about your day? Okay, well, is that what I like? Is that what I want? And, a really important question that I always like to ask is, if you had to do it again, would you choose the same job? Or at some point, would you have looked elsewhere and done something different? And if you had done something different, that doesn't necessarily mean you're in the wrong place, but it's like, okay, well, why would you choose something different? So maybe that can help guide you in your search for what you're looking for. And then sometimes, to be honest, sometimes you got to take a leap of faith, and you go with a job, even if it doesn't seem perfect, because in life, you just never know where life is going to take you. So be prepared and be ready to be flexible and be ready to jump at opportunity when it presents itself, because it usually comes unannounced. And if you're prepared and done as much training and as much education as you can, and make yourself a well-rounded person, not necessarily laser specific on one thing, I think it can serve you well.
Do you actually, I'll skip over a question here. Every Tuesday we have tour or question and answer with different industries. Today is you.
Sure.
And then every Wednesday we have a working Wednesday that talks about professional skill buildings or skill building. So tomorrow's professional webinar is on resume building. Or I mean, this is just kind of in looking for jobs or being a great candidate in general. As an employer, is there anything like that you look for on a resume, or any red flags that you would see, or how can students portray themselves to be good candidates for a job with you?
I would say proofread is one good one. Never you should always go through your resume, and then don't just do it yourself. Have someone else read it. Or if you have someone that is a professional, or just anyone, a teacher, anyone, have them read it, and especially maybe someone that doesn't know you very well, and you could have them look at it and go, how does this make me seem? Because the one thing about resumes that's tough is that you can write it and what the words are and what they mean, and where their value in the resume, but a person who's reading that, who's never met you, doesn't get your personality out of it. So you have to try and get that personality to come out. And then I would really, one thing that's super important is when you read a job description, when you write a resume, use the same language that was in the job description. Make sure if they say a word, like that's a skill they expect you to have, say that word back. Because a lot of times these days, it's a computer sorting out resumes before it even sees a person. And so that computer has been plugged in the same job description that you're reading. And if you don't meet what that computer thinks you're supposed to meet, it's never going to get before anyone to actually look at it. So that's a structural thing that I would look for. And another thing is, keep it brief and keep it truthful, and make it clear, make it easy to read. I think those are probably my prime things I look for right off the bat, because after that, it's about experience, it's about education, It's all the things that you just have done, and that's really what a resume is supposed to do, right? Let people know what you've done or what you know. So,
Do you all use a computer to sort through your resumes when people apply?
the city of Eugene, I think for some, when they get tons of, they do. For maybe other positions, not always. But I can tell you, my wife is a recruiter for a large tech company, and they absolutely use computers, not because they don't want to be respectful to people,
Mm-hmm.
but they just have to because they get so many resumes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I will table a couple questions here because there's one in the chat. It says, Olivia says, I always enjoy being at the Eugene Airport as opposed to airports in bigger cities. Same. Apart from being smaller, are there other things that you feel make the Eugene Airport stand out from other airports?
Yeah, I think one, as someone who's traveled a lot, and I used to say this even before I worked here, it's a really clean airport. We've always taken pride in our cleanliness, and that's pre-COVID. And so that's always been great. And I like how calm the Eugene Airport is. You know, you go to a lot of airports and you've got a lot of TVs playing or music playing, and it just really heightens energy. And not everyone is comfortable traveling, and so there's a heightened kind of energy level there already. So we really make a conscious effort to have it be as calm as possible to really help people mitigate their stress when they're traveling. And I don't know, I think we just across the board, I talk to our TSA people and they're all super friendly. That's not always the case.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're all kind of a family here. We might work for, airline or airport or concession or TSA, but there's a real feeling that everyone here is in it together. And that's really great on a day-to-day level. And it's also super great when, we're getting some bad weather or things aren't going perfectly, which happens. And so really everyone just comes together and does their piece. So I really like that about Eugene.
Mm-hmm. Her second part of the question that I missed before I finished it was especially as a place to work. So you just kind of alluded to, it feels like a family and you enjoy working with the people that you're working with from all departments.
Yeah. And we all help each other out, so we're definitely a team, and that's important. I think when you work with people, you have to, one, be professional, but two, you have to be able to work with people that aren't necessarily like you, or might have different value sets or different perspectives. And the key to, I think, a successful career is to recognize differences and celebrate them in many ways. But then when they're, not everyone gets along with everyone, but in the workplace, that needs to be put aside, and work comes first. And it has to be, you have to have a respectful workplace at all times.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of skills do you look for in, we talked about resume and kind of how to sell yourself with a resume and getting a job, but what kind of skills specifically do you look for, after the computer looks through it or once you're interviewing with someone? What are maybe like one or two top skills that a student or anyone would need to be successful in this role or in the airport in general?
That's tough, once again, because each role is totally different. But I will say probably the easiest way to just get some experience is to maybe go work for an airline. Some of the entry level jobs, they're not the most glorious jobs, but they do get you experience in the industry. There's also, there are airline education, programs that you can kind of work your way through that. And there are scholarships available through several foundations, or not foundations, sorry, organizations. So there's the American Airport Executives. So AAAE is the national one, and then the Northwest chapter. So each of those gives out scholarships to people who are students in the aviation, want to get into aviation, specifically aviation management. If you want to be a pilot, obviously flight school, is where to go. But I think it's there. There's two ways to get noticed, and that's experience and education. And even best would be a combination of both.
Mhm.
So it really depends on your own circumstance, and once again, specifically where you want to be, where do you want to end up, and then work your way backwards. Okay, so that I can start there because that'll eventually lead me there.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask a kind of general question again. I know, you have a one department or area of the airport, but um, there's all different parts. And, there's the flight crew, or being a pilot. I have friends who went to pilot school in Southern California, but you're saying there's a school at LCC or through LCC.
Yep.
So do you notice that um, a lot of the positions or jobs or career paths can be started and trained and done all locally, or are there some that need to be outsourced to different areas?
Yes and no to both. I mean, if you're talking about pilots specifically, I mean, the LCC flight school, they can get someone, it's my understanding, to a place where they can, be a commercially licensed pilot. And I will tell you that, we had a pilot shortage before COVID. COVID caused obviously a reduction in our industry.
Mhm.
So a lot of the more experienced pilots took early retirement. And so we're actually finding now, as we're getting busier again, that pilot shortage didn't go away, which just kind of went away temporarily.
Mm.
And now we've got even fewer pilots. So there is a huge demand for commercial pilots, and will be for some time, in my opinion. So if being a pilot is something that that interests you, then I think it's definitely a field that there's going to be opportunities.
Um, is there also a shortage on flight attendants or any other kind of aspects of the
I
airlines
don't
or
have hard
airport?
data on flight attendants, but I do know that they hire on a regular basis. I
Mhm.
mean, I have friends who have become flight attendants, and that's really something. If you were interested in that route, then that's through the airlines. And so I would look to an airline that you kind of like their philosophy and their culture, because each one's a slightly different. And then look into it, because I think from what I understand, I don't know if they've been on pause because of COVID, but they all have flight attendant training programs. And so that would be really the best resource for figuring out about flight attendants.
Mhm. Sounds like COVID has just, as many industries, it's affected, kind of training
Yeah,
conventions and things.
we got hit pretty hard. So we at one point were down to 5% of our traffic. So
Wow.
2019 was a record year for us. It
Mhm.
was actually the ninth record year in a row. So we did 1.2 million passengers in 2019. So then when COVID initially hit, just like the rest of the industry, we took a really big nosedive. But we've rebounded pretty strongly. We've across the board throughout this been, 5 to 10% higher than national averages as far as passenger traffic. And the last few weeks, we've really been around 75 to 78% of 2019 levels. And we feel that demand is only going to increase. Everyone's been sitting at home. Everyone wants to travel, especially domestically, to go see family and friends, and just get out of the house.
Yeah.
So we feel like as the vaccine gets out more and more, people are more comfortable, that we're actually going to see passenger levels and numbers even higher than before the pandemic.
Mm.
So we've really tried to use this opportunity as a silver lining. So we've taken a lot of projects that necessarily would have been more difficult to do with a terminal full of passengers, and taking the opportunity to upgrade our HVAC systems, do a lot of work, behind the scenes. And we really feel like coming out of the pandemic, we're going to be even stronger than we went into it.
Awesome. I know
Yeah.
I plan to fly out of Eugene next month, so that's really
Thank you very
exciting.
much.
Yep, I haven't done that in quite a while.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah. So another question here, what kinds of jobs or positions coordinate with other airlines or with the airlines that you serve? So are there designated liaisons between the airport and each airline?
Absolutely. And so it's important to differentiate here between
Mhm.
local airline and then corporate airline. So, and each airport does this slightly different depending on how big they are. But for Eugene, so we have our tenant services manager, and he is our liaison with our local airline station managers. So that's really talking, to them about everything from where do they park their tugs, and which aircraft stays at what gate during overnight, and or any issues that come up. Either airline needs something from airport, or airport needs something from airline. So anything that happens at the local level, we actually have a management position that deals with that. And then we also have at the corporate level. So then we're talking more of developing flight service, getting really pitching to airlines why they should increase the number of flights and the number of destinations, because a lot of people think the airport gets to choose where our flights go to. Well, it's not. It's the airlines get to choose where they go. So we're always looking for new flights, new destinations, because we feel like it's good for our community. We view ourselves as a community resource. And so we do our best to entice airlines to either expand service or bring new service in. And so that's something that myself and Catherine, our airport director, along with, we have a consulting firm we use. We actually go and we present to the airlines to try and show them, why we think Eugene is such a valuable place, why our community and region should be attracted to them, and why they should increase their service to our area.
That's interesting. There's a direct flight that you all used to have that is no longer a flight, and I was pretty bummed when it got taken away. So that's interesting to hear kind of the.
Which one was that?
Eugene to San Jose.
Oh yeah,
direct.
I was a fan of that flight too.
Yeah.
I'm kind of bummed that flight went away. I guess the thing is, airlines will keep flights as long as people keep flying them. So,
well, and then there's
unfortunate.
They put in the direct flight to Chicago, right? So was it that Chicago was more appealing than San Jose to people that live in Eugene, or?
No, and two different airlines. So the San Jose was Alaska, the Chicago is United, but just different markets. Airlines have very specific models and algorithms they look at, so they're able to see like, okay, on average, we have X number of people who start in Eugene, but we see that they're layovering or do a layover somewhere and end up somewhere else. And so they see a lot of, people start in Eugene, but they're ending up in Chicago, no matter where they're going through. And that to them, they go, oh, well, why don't we just do a Eugene to Chicago and capture all those people that way? So I would say those two flights in specific are not related. But yeah, we were bummed to see the San Jose go away. We'd love to see it back.
Me too.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's probably a whole, somewhere there's a whole like research department and data driven kind of jobs, maybe not within you all, but out there's data and statistics that people can get into.
Every airline has they're called route planners. So every airline has a team, really, and that's all they do is look at where they think routes, are, because they have a limited number of aircraft too, right? So, and there's a whole science behind aircraft and where are they going to spend overnight and how often do they need to end up in an airport to get maintenance. And so there's an art to it, really. So that really all goes into determining what flights, where they send them.
A couple questions in here. Let me pull that one up. Back to COVID, how has international COVID travel restrictions impacted the Eugene Airport?
Obviously, the international travel has been hit even harder than the domestic travel and continues to be. And we really think it will be for a while, much more so than domestic travel. And so while that has had an impact, we've seen an increase in domestic travel, and the airline industry as a whole, we're seeing a shift away from travel through large hubs. So that's your Seattles, your LAs, and things like that, because a lot of those really serve that international market in such a big way. And so I would say that they're more affected than the Eugene Airport is, because we're able to balance some of that international travel that we've lost through connections, and found that the increase in domestic travel has kind of offset it. So while it is an impact, as airlines move away from the big hubs towards considered what's called a small hub airport, we found that it's actually, we're becoming more desirable as people want more point-to-point flying instead of flying through a hub to get somewhere farther away.
Mm-hmm. Another one in here kind of pivots a little bit. Can you share any other stories that showcase a challenge or a success as it applies to your job at the airport?
Challenge or success that applies to my job personally? Gosh, I would say it's both at the same time. The challenge is, there's a lot of things going on, and so you have to be organized. And so it's every day the challenge is to make sure something important doesn't slip through the cracks. But then I think it's also a success because myself and the management team here, I think we all do a great job. So we make those, things happen, and we don't let things fall through the cracks. And, we're a pretty small team. We only have 41 full-time employees to run the entire airport. So that's all 2,600 acres, our terminal, our management, our project management, all our construction. You figure all the electrical, all the lights, we've got more lights than you can imagine, and they're all very specific. And so I would say the success is that we all work together to really make a complex physical environment and also complex regulatory environment really work. And the fact that people aren't able to see how complex it is, that's a win for us. If we're making it look easy, then we've done our jobs.
Okay. Do you have any job shadow or internship type experiences available at the airport?
We do an annual internship. It's through the Northwest AAAE. Like I mentioned, they have a scholarship program. It's generally for someone who's in the learning process in airport management or something kind of in airport field, not airline, airport. And so we do generally have a summer intern. We haven't necessarily done an official job shadow program, but if someone had a specific interest that matched up with someone on our team, it's definitely something that we're open to.
And is that for, would you be open to high school students or just college students?
More college, but if there was a high school student who really was driven and had a specific idea, happy to spend time, even if it's just kind of pointing someone in the right direction, not necessarily a job shadow.
Great. I've been trying to formulate a question and I'm not quite sure how to ask it, so I'm just going to try it out here.
Go for it.
Things have changed, and I'm not just talking COVID. I'm talking things change over the years, right? New technology. You have, you said a kind of 5 to 20 year plan. So looking back on the past, 5 to 20 years, how have things changed? And I keep thinking back to, airline travel in general, but also things like the rental car system, right? Uber and Lyft have started to come up and probably, I assume, affected the rental car industry. So how have things changed throughout the airline industry in the past few years?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't think Uber and Lyft didn't really take a bite out of the rental car industry like they thought it would. They've kind of both worked pretty symbiotically for the most part. As far as for airline travel, we've seen, for the most part, prices stable or come down. And so access to travel, I think, has expanded to a greater percentage of people. And, as airplanes get quieter and more efficient, there's just improvements in that area. We're really conscious of trying to find ways to reduce emissions and be environmentally conscious as much as we can. I think the emerging technologies in non-carbon based fuels is going to be really important, and really excited to see the new technologies coming out with electric aircraft. We're not quite there yet for a big jet, but we're starting to see some of the 6 to 12 person planes. And so the way technology accelerates in these last 10 to 20 years, excuse me, I'm excited to see what comes down the road. And then really excited too to see where unmanned personal aircraft and VTOLs, so vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, fit into kind of the whole transportation picture. So yeah, it's an exciting time.
Yeah, sounds like things are moving. I mean, technology is just skyrocketed, right? Like
Yep.
everything is kind of pushed things along a little bit,
I mean,
a lot of it.
a saying that's always stuck with me is change is inevitable, progress is optional.
Mhm.
So we're hoping to be on the progress side.
Yeah.
Because change is coming no matter what.
Right.
Yeah.
So in thinking about the Eugene Airport or airports in general as a career path, what would you, or do you think it's a really good career path for students, kind of working their way up? And then what does it look like to maybe transfer to other airports? I know, that's kind of a possibility with different departments to kind of work your way up and then transfer over and maybe move to
Yeah.
a new city. What does that look
And
like?
it's, obviously I like my job, so I think it's a great, it's a good place to be. I think you have to maybe look towards larger airports to maybe get your foot in the door because they have more possibilities just because
Hmm.
their teams are larger. But there's definitely movement between airports. I mean, once you kind of get in and you learn your skill sets and the ability to progress and to move into different roles or whatever your interests are, those opportunities are there. And just like really, I would say any business, but maybe more specifically to airports because we're not on a day-to-day interaction with each other because by definition, people in another airport are in a different city,
Hmm.
so but once you get into this industry or really any other, it's all about networking and getting to know people and building those relationships so that when or if an opportunity comes up somewhere, that you already have kind of that pre-built kind of knowledge of who they are and vice versa of who you are. So that's always helpful because then it's not just your resume hitting their desk,
Right.
right? And it's, oh, I already know this person. I've talked to them. And so that's always a good thing.
Hmm. Just seems like there's so many possibilities with, the Eugene Airport or airports in general of,
There really
jobs
are.
and career and
And there's movement too between airline and airport.
right.
I mean, there's room for movement there. And then there's consulting firms, so there's consultants for construction, there's consultants for air service, there's consultants for all kinds of stuff. And so there's lots of opportunities to move and grow within the industry. It's definitely not stagnant.
That's awesome. All right. So thank you. I don't see any more questions in the chat. So thank you, Andrew, for being here and chatting with me,
Absolutely.
talking with the students about the Eugene Airport and airports in general. I know I ask a lot of side questions about it,
It's okay.
but airports are really curious to me. So thank you all for being here, and we hope to see you tomorrow for the Working Wednesday webinar on resume building. Remember those things that Andrew said about ways to make your resume a little bit better. So thank you all for being here, and I hope to see you all soon. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Mhm.